consulting.com, and today I have the honor of interviewing and talking with Wendel. She's a physical therapist and athletic trainer, and she owns Prana Physical Therapy in Alexandria, Virginia, and she has a cash-based physical therapy practice. And does a lot of different things, including writing monthly columns for BossFit magazine, Girls Gone Strong, Web PT. She's writing for MedBridge, and she just finished a cash-based physical therapy seminar with Wendel Seminars. Hello, Anne, and welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad we got hooked up here and got everything working.
Yeah, great. Me too. So first thing I want to do is just have you tell me a little bit about your practice and kind of what got you started doing cash-based physical therapy.
So I got started initially back in 2003. So it's been quite a long time since I first started the business and opened it. I initially started it because I was working in a busy rehab hospital and was just kind of frustrated with the way things were going there. And I just thought, you know what, I can do this. I can do something so much better and make it my own. I started my practice back then. So I did it for about 4 years and then went to work for someone else in about 2006 or 7. And then got some management experience and did some other things, and then about 2 years ago went back out on my own again and reopened the practice.
Awesome. When you reopened, did you just go 100% cash-based practice, or did you transition slowly? How did that work for you?
Yeah, I've always been 100% cash-based. My idea was to try to keep things small and not have to hire staff and not have a big billing department. And I knew just from doing this before that there was definitely a market that was supported in this area. So I just went straight in 100% cash-based.
Awesome. And when you started, or what things did you do to offset some of the costs? Did you sublet space from anyone? Did you partner up with anybody? Or, was there any other things that you used to kind of keep your overhead low as you started?
Yeah, and my goal is to still keep my overhead low, still kind of keep things small and organic. So currently, I'll just tell you what I'm doing. Currently, I'm renting space in a personal training studio. So I was fortunate enough to be introduced to 2 ladies who have been in business for about 10 years and have a great personal training studio here in Alexandria. And we got to be friends, and I was looking to get started on my own and everything. And they said, well, we have this little room, and you could come use the room and have access to the gym. And so that's what I did, and that's where I am. And it's just a great partnership. We have very similar philosophies about nutrition and lifestyle and training. And so it provides a really nice, seamless transition for their clients to come see me if they're injured, and then for me to be able to send them back to the trainers and talk every day with the trainers about the patients and how they're doing. So it's been great.
Awesome. And do you have a private treatment room where you treat people as well as the gym space? And what is it? Okay. And then tell me, what is a typical session for one of your patients like? How long is it? What kind of things are you doing with them, etc.?
Sure. So typically it's an hour. My kind of business model is an hour one-on-one with each patient. So my first appointment, the initial evaluation, is always an hour, and usually the first couple are at least an hour. Sometimes there are patients who can then go to a half an hour if they don't need too much of the hands-on kind of stuff. Because they're all working with, most of my clients are members of the gym, and they're working with trainers, and I can kind of tweak their exercise program, give the trainers input. That makes it easy, so sometimes I can get away with doing a half an hour. I'm very big on giving patients stuff to do at home so that they're not standing there doing mindless repetitions of exercises. So typically the patient will come in and, I've gotten to be really friends, and I'm sure you experience this too with your patients. You get to know people pretty well, and so usually spend 5 or 10 minutes catching up, things that are going on, how they're feeling, what they've noticed, good changes, problems that they're currently having. And then I'll do an assessment and kind of figure out what we need to do for the day. And usually there's some component of hands-on type stuff in the treatment room, and then always getting them up and moving as fast as I can after that, and doing some mobility or movement or strengthening in the gym.
Okay, awesome. What is it that you provide that other people are seeking out that you maybe is not available elsewhere, or why do you think people are choosing to see you and pay cash for your physical therapy services?
Um, I just was having a conversation about this with someone the other day, and I said, honestly, my value is that I listen. And I spend a lot of time with my patients. I get to know them, and I really listen to not just what they're saying, but what they aren't saying and what's in between the lines, and not just how their shoulder's feeling, but how their grandchild and how this and that, and all the things that might impact their recovery and their healing. And so I develop a good, trusting relationship with them. And I'm able to provide a lot of education and a lot of training and different things. So I think the time factor is good. I think it's also that, I'm just willing to listen and maybe ask questions and go into areas that other therapists either don't have time or the interest in doing in a busy clinic. And then, there's always the people who are seeking me out for certain techniques. And, obviously no one technique defines physical therapy, but I do some manual techniques. I do dry needling, which a lot of people come looking specifically for. I have Pilates teacher training, yoga teacher training, so I add different components of everything I've learned over the past 20 years into what I'm doing.
Yeah, awesome. I tell people a lot of times, that it's not the technique, it's the therapist, but at the same time, there's that patient-therapist dynamic, and in that, a lot of what I do is listen to my patients, and they haven't been listened to before by their physician or haven't had the time by other physical therapists to listen to them. And sometimes people will spend 10, 15 minutes telling me their story, and it's that's what's important to them, and I might not do anything during that time except listen. But I think that's what a lot of people value.
Yeah, and what you are doing something, and I think that's something, honestly, that's starting to change. Our mindset in physical therapy is starting to change, where we don't have to be doing and talking all the time. Listening, um, studies show how important empathy is, developing a connection, and then providing education, giving the patient some tools. It's not necessarily about throwing information at them, but just, developing a relationship where they trust you and they listen and are willing to partner with you on what you're doing.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Okay, I've got a role-playing scenario I want to do with you. Okay, um, ring, 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 and okay. So now you answer the phone.
Sure.
Okay, so how would you answer the phone?
So I would say Prana Physical Therapy.
Okay.
How can I help you today, or something like that.
Okay, and I'm gonna say, do you take my insurance?
My question is always, what type of insurance do you have?
Okay, I have Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay. So, and this is important, and I talked to some people about this at CSM at Combined Sections meeting. My whole goal in this conversation that we're starting down is to never say the word no. So if you call and you say, do you take my insurance? And I say, no, I'm out of network with all insurances. It's like, okay, have a good day. Click. The conversation's over.
Right.
So my goal is always to lead that conversation in the direction that I want it to go to provide the most value for that patient. So typically I'll say something like, typically with Blue Cross Blue Shield, reimbursement is fairly good. I'm out of network with all insurance companies. What that means is that when you come to see me, my patients pay at the time of service, and I give you an invoice, and then you submit the invoice for reimbursement.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, everyone has their, slightly different way of doing the same thing. But I love what you have to say about that. It's about redirecting the patient to understand that you care about them, and I think that that's really important. Awesome.
And sometimes it's just a matter of listening to what the patient is saying, because for some people, what they value is being able to use their insurance. And so if that's the case, I can determine that pretty quickly, and I'm not going to sit there and try to convince that person and give them the hard sell of why they should come to my practice. Especially, if they have Medicare, that goes down a whole different road. But I
Right.
frequently recommend other therapists in the area that I trust, that I know take insurance, because I want that patient to have a good experience with physical therapy. So, keeping in mind the larger context of being an ambassador for our profession, we want them to have good treatment. So if they have to use their insurance, I'm going to refer them to someone that I trust.
Right, right. I love hearing that because I do the same thing. I have, a few therapists in town where if someone that's exactly what they want to do, then I send them over there, and hopefully that I build some goodwill and receive referrals that are more appropriate for my practice as well.
And I've had some of those people actually, without ever having seen me, they've referred their friends or family members to me because they were like, oh, she had really helped me out, and I had to go somewhere with my insurance, but she was so nice, and I read her website, and she offers some great things, and maybe you should try her. So it never hurts to be kind and to do the right thing and make the appropriate referral.
Right, right. I 100% agree with you. That's awesome. So tell me, in Virginia, what are the direct access laws that you guys have right now?
So in Virginia, we can do the initial evaluation and 14 business days worth of treatment before we need to have the patient's plan of care signed by a physician or a chiropractor or a dentist or a nurse practitioner. Um, the kind of caveat to that affects me is that we can't do any dry needling in the state of Virginia without having the plan of care signed. So if a patient comes to me and they haven't seen a physician, um, I can't use that technique in those 14 days. And if nothing else gets changed, I'd really like to see that get changed, because that's like saying we can't do a mobilization or we can't do therapeutic exercise. I get it. It's an invasive technique, and that's the difference. But it is something that our Practice Act allows us to do in this state, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do it in those 14 days.
Right. So how do you, so tell me like, how do you go about making that, getting the physician to sign the plan of care? You just fax them your notes and they sign it back?
Yeah, I use WebPT for electronic medical records, and so the great thing about that is my notes come out really nice and professional, and they have my logo on them, and I can just automatically electronically fax it to the office. Usually, if the patient hadn't just seen a physician for the problem and they weren't, referred that way, I'll have them call their doctor's office ahead of time and just say, I'm having this problem with my shoulder. I went to see a physical therapist. She's going to be sending me some information. Can you just sign it? And usually that works pretty well. Occasionally, because I'm an outpatient, most people are pretty healthy. Maybe they haven't seen their doctor in a year or 2 years.
Hmm.
And then the doctor might kind of balk at that and say, well, I'm not signing this without seeing them. And then they've got to go have a doctor's appointment.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds tough. We've got unrestricted direct access except for high velocity thrust to the spine. So that's kind of nice. So I kind of used to that, but everyone has their own little nuances they have to work with. And, I think one of the benefits is that the practice pattern around here is that everyone has to see their physician first, because most of the PT clinics are owned by physicians where I live. And everyone still thinks that they need a physician's referral, though we've had direct access for 25 years.
Right.
But I think that cash-based practices are set up to utilize this direct access ability much easier because we can go out, and one of the benefits is a lot of people can come see us right away. Is that kind of how you see it up there?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I do a lot of, trying to educate people. Like you said, most patients don't understand that we have direct access. They don't even understand what that means. Heck, most of them don't understand what physical therapy is to begin with. So, I think it's kind of on us as a profession to keep educating the public about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say probably, gosh, 90% of my patients are direct access. Because I've been a PT in this area for, 15, 20 years or whatever, 16 years I've lived here. So I do get some referrals from physicians who I used to work with maybe at a past place where I worked or something. But by and large, it's usually direct access. Most of my patients find me they're either clients or friends of someone who's a member at the gym where my office is, or they'll find me through my writing, which is, if you do a Google search for physical therapy in Alexandria, a lot of my articles will come up, or specifically if they're looking for dry needling or Pilates or something like that, they'll find me through Google.
Right. Awesome. So that leads to a couple of my questions, or these typical ones everyone has, but you're right. I know you're writing for a lot of different companies and organizations, and I guess part of that is because you're passionate about physical therapy and the topics. But is another part of it that it helps your online presence and Google ranking and that kind of thing, so that patients can find you? Is that part of it?
It's funny. That's kind of how it started out. When I first started out, obviously didn't have a full patient census, and I had all these hours where I was not used to not doing something. So I just started writing, and I've always liked to write, and I started just putting stuff up on my blog and doing a lot of guest posts on other blogs and things like that. I was fortunate enough to kind of connect and become friends with some of the people in the industry that have a really large presence online, like Eric Cressy and Dean Somerset, and do some guest posts for those guys. And so then patients started getting in touch with me from that, and that led to writing for local magazines like Northern Virginia Magazine and Washingtonian, and then patients would find me from those articles. And now it's really turned into something that I love, and it's a growing part of my business. Is more of the writing and kind of teaching and the webinars and things like that. And that's great for me because I feel like I can reach more than just the people I can see in my office, one person at a time. Like I have a vision for really reaching as many people as I can with the message, but using the skills and opinions that I have. So.
Right. Awesome. I came to the realization a while ago that I can't heal everybody, but because I can only see a certain number of people. But putting out great information online, I think, is a way to take my message, or for you to take your message to more people. And I just found that it's a very powerful medium, and so that's really awesome to hear and see how well you're doing at it. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. I've gotten to meet a lot of people. I've made a lot of great connections, and when you think about it, a decade, 2 decades ago, this kind of thing wasn't possible. So just the reach that anyone can have by posting an article is huge. You can't underestimate one person on one blog doing something.
Yeah, it's awesome. Is there like one place where you think, like online, if a therapist who's listening to this conversation is like, okay, I need to write online, is there a resource or a place that you think would be best for them to post an article or some writing that not only would put their message out there, but help brand them and help with their marketing of their business?
I would think, it all depends. It goes back to what your intention is. So if your intention in the writing is to drive or draw patients to your practice, I would say start locally. So, I mentioned here Northern Virginia Magazine, Washingtonian. So every town, every city has those types of magazines. Writing for your local paper, your local magazines, things like that. Maybe, if there's local gyms, CrossFit boxes, things like that will accept a guest post or have you come in and speak and then direct people to your website. So if your goal is to draw patients to your practice, I would say start locally. But if you have a product or a book or something like that that you want to get the word out to, or a continuing ed course or a patient ed course, They need one to go a little bit bigger. And, obviously Google is a great place, Google Plus, to post things. Twitter, I mean, I'm kind of a Twitter addict, so I'm posting stuff on Twitter. But, a lot of businesses have a Facebook page. Business Facebook page can be tricky. Facebook has done a lot of really screwy stuff with businesses lately,
Right.
to where their posts aren't showing up. So I don't invest a whole lot of energy or time into Facebook. I feel like they've taken a lot of the control away from you for having it for your business. But start a blog on your own website. Not you, but whoever's listening. Start a blog on your own website, and then just start. I mean, I always joke, you're kind of pimping the heck out of it. Just put it up everywhere, and get the word out there. But just start that way.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I could say for me, my blog and my website, they do everything for me. And they sell me, they explain what I do. They sort of set the patient up for understanding how it is that insurance affects, my practice and their practice, and it's been really, a huge thing for me is the internet. I rarely, I think I have 3 or 4 patients in the last year referred by a physician. Everyone else is, calls me and they say they found me online.
Right.
you
That's
know,
awesome.
yeah, thanks. I can't preach it enough, but to see other people with a strong web presence and say, hey, this is working. And I think if everyone, sort of, it's not going to work for everyone, because if you're writing, you know, just to sell, it's not the same as writing to help someone.
And that's the thing, you want to provide valuable content. You don't want to be that person who auto tweets 15 times a day the same thing that says, I have this product or whatever.
Right.
Because social media should be social. It should be about making friends, kind of, establishing relationships, having conversations. And if all you're doing is auto tweeting or auto posting, it's you talking at people. It's not engaging. So you can do a certain amount of auto posting stuff, auto tweeting, and scheduled things like that. But really, for me, the benefit is connecting with people and starting conversations, and then being able to share my value in that conversation.
Right. Do you feel like you're preaching to the choir a lot on Twitter?
How do you mean, as far as who's listening?
Well, well, I feel like, Twitter has been one of those things where I've connected with a lot of other physical therapists, and, someone will post something and be like, yeah, I agree, and I'll post my thought, and then I'm like, wait, we're on the same page, and, it's like, where's that going?
You know, I don't use Twitter for finding patients. It's great. I've actually probably gotten 4 or 5 patients in the past year from Twitter. Sometimes I get referrals from other physical therapists. Actually, that's happened more frequently, that someone who follows me on Twitter will tell a patient in their area, maybe the patient's moving here, or people come to DC a lot on business and they're here for extended time. So I've had people send people to come see me, which is great. I love that. But I'm not on Twitter specifically to get patients. I'm on Twitter because it's fun, and I've just made some really good friends and established really good relationships and contacts that have then led to other things for my business. So for me, Twitter has led to speaking opportunities, writing opportunities, different things like that, to kind of expand my business in the direction that I want it to go. But I think if you're just on there to get patients, it's probably not going to be all that beneficial, because you have to think about who's probably following you. And so in that case, getting patients, a Facebook page might be more beneficial or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I see the same thing. But Facebook's got its own issues, as you mentioned before, and that's where, the blog, I think, helps, because it's a central place where people can come and they can find you. Let me ask you a few more questions before we go. Then, and kind of these are maybe short. Hopefully, I'll kind of, I don't know what it's called. Just kind of roll out a couple questions to you. But what's the one thing that you've done when you started your practice, whether it was marketing or administrative, that you regret or think, I would do it a different way if I had to do it again?
Oh boy. I I can be a little bit impulsive, and so when I decided to go back out on my own, it was like I woke up one day and I dreaded going to work, and I was like, I'm not doing this for one more day. And so I kind of found some space and gave my notice and started the practice within a month. And that's not the way I would ever advise anyone that I'm coaching or consulting to do it, because it worked out okay, but it's so incredibly stressful that it's just not a good way to do it. So had I been able to just kind of hold my horses a little longer, I would have probably started out slowly and gotten a patient census going and kind of gotten things set up, and then transitioned gradually into 100% on my own.
Right.
That can be tricky in outpatient, because if you're working for an outpatient clinic and you're looking at starting your private practice somewhere probably still locally to that, they can view that as competition, and they may not want you working there anymore. Which, that happened to me actually in 2003 when I was at the hospital. They actually asked me to stop working PRN at the hospital because they felt somehow like it was competition, even though I wasn't even after the same target market. So yeah, you have to be aware of that. But
Right.
you probably would have done that differently in hindsight.
Okay, good. What's the single most important or best thing that you've done that's helped your practice?
Uh, so recently, probably starting in January, I decided to take an admin day, and Wednesdays are my admin day. And that came from a coaching course that I did with Jamie Schreier called the 21-Day Jumpstart, which was a big help. But it helped me to look at everything that was going on and where I wanted to go and what I needed to do to get there. And so I realized that my days were pretty spread out, and I'd have a couple patients in the morning and then maybe somebody later, and I just thought, well, this is ridiculous. Let me get rid of Wednesdays as a treatment day and compress everything so that I'm busy back to back, and then I've got all day on Wednesday. And what that's done is it's freed up time for me to either catch up on paperwork, I go meet with different physicians or different private practice owners for marketing. I do things like we're doing right now. I had a coaching call earlier today. So it just has freed me up. And I think we get so focused on working in our business that we forget to work on our business. And that's a big thing that's come out of coaching for me. So.
Awesome, awesome. And I have one other kind of question and topic I want to ask you. And I know that you've been, it's kind of a little bit shift, but you've been doing paleo consultations, or more of kind of health coaching, lifestyle coaching. So this kind of multi-part question. One, how are you incorporating that into your practice? And two, is it something that you're using to diversify your income, or is it just, other than maybe, having it as a top, like a way of eating and living that you're doing yourself, but is it something that you're doing as a added bonus value, or is also something that you're doing with people on a regular basis? And just tell me a little bit more about how you're doing that.
Yeah, so that kind of came out of, most things born out of necessity. I realized that most of my patients were eating like crap, and it was affecting their healing. And I've written a lot about my own struggles. I have a autoimmune thyroid illness. And so that's what kind of led me down that pathway of kind of figuring out what I need to tweak, not just the food, but lifestyle changes and things like that. And so I really am passionate about that and helping other people to realize that just going to physical therapy or massage or working out is not enough. And we need a comprehensive approach to wellness and to health and to physical therapy. So it started with me just kind of going through some of these principles with my patients, and came to like, let's add that on as a service so that people who don't necessarily have an injury that just want lifestyle modifications and things like that, nutrition information, can come in. So it's kind of its own thing, and it does bring in some extra income, and I stay fairly busy with it. But it is something that I include with all my patients, so everybody gets to listen to me lecture them on how they need to stop eating, pasta 3 meals a day and stop drinking soda, and stop sleeping 4 hours a night and really move things in a positive direction.
Awesome. Is there like a time, like is it during the initial evaluation you wait till you hear people talking about what they're doing, where you bring up this like what you eat is what you are type of topic, and is there any handouts or resources that you use to give to your patients?
So on my intake forms, there are questions about diet and sleep and things like that. So that kind of steers us in the right direction. And most patients are pretty honest. They'll just write, "It sucks," or,
Uh-huh.
um, I eat terribly. Most people actually, it's like they're doing a confession kind of a thing. They'll be like, "It's really bad. It should be better," but those are all ways to open the conversation up. And so I'll ask questions like, in a typical day, tell me what you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. How many hours of sleep do you get? And so that's all part of my initial evaluation and my history taking and things like that. And as far as resources, I've come up with some stuff on my own. I do some consulting with a company called Whole Nine Life, and so I direct people to their website, which is whole9life.com, because they have tons of free downloads and information that's already put together on their website.
Awesome. Yeah, that's something my wife and I kind of slowly moved into about 2.5 years ago by just dropping. We started with a whole foods diet, and then we just dropped all processed foods, and we were eating fairly healthy, but you drop some processed foods, and it makes a big difference.
It's huge. When you stop eating anything that comes in a package, it's like, oh boy, it's
Right.
like cooking.
Yeah, so I go to the grocery store, and if I'm the only one with a cart full of vegetables and fruit and meat, and
Yeah,
everyone else is boxed up neatly and everything. So,
right.
you know,
Well, and I think honestly, a lot of people have said, well, I don't think that's an area that physical therapists should be talking to our patients about, which is, it's really crazy to think that way. When you think about how much we interact with people that have diabetes or have different long-term health conditions that are affecting them, and that's part of why they're in physical therapy, we could at least talk to them about very basic things like, you know, do you cook? Here's some ideas. Here's some websites that have recipes. Maybe you can think about giving up the 16 cups of coffee. Maybe you don't need a liter of Diet Coke every day. These are just
mhm.
simple things, but it's the simple things that make the biggest difference for people who are obese or have chronic illnesses. And we're their point of contact a lot of times.
Yeah, one of the biggest changes I made was I started making my own like rice bars and energy bars for riding bicycles, and because I go out for a few hours, and it used to only be packaged food, Cliff Bars and whatnot, and
Yeah,
that was huge, but I never knew about it when I was doing that a ton 10 years
right.
ago. So that's awesome. Well, and I've enjoyed talking to you today, and this has been a lot of fun. Will you just remind me and everyone else listening, how do we find you, and what's your website, how we find you on Twitter, and anything else
Sure.
that you want to share?
So my website is prana-pt.com. So it's prana-pt.com. On Twitter, I'm at pranapt. So I have, my website and my blog and things like that. Um, and I did want to mention I'm going to be coming out with some resources soon for cash-based therapists. So, I'll be putting some stuff up about that. But I've had a lot of questions on what forms I use and different things. So I'm going to be putting some resources up on my website that if anybody's watching this and they're either thinking about adding cash-based services or starting a cash-based practice, there will be some more resources available.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here with me today, and I look forward to I look forward to meeting you in person actually one day.
Yeah, I know. We got to make that happen.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.